Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program Ashford Garley Live on Brace Radio Africa. Today is Monday, the 11th of September, 2023. By way of introduction, my name is Ashford Garley. I'm your host. Very shortly, we are going to introduce the panel, and please sit back, relax as we entertain you tonight. As always, Father God, we want to say thanks for giving us the chance to see yet another day. Father, you woke up us this morning. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for the car I drive. Thank you for putting a roof over my head. Thank you. We are grateful to you, Lord. In the name of Jesus, we have given thanks. Some heard the name, some heard people talk about him. You've gotten the opportunity tonight to match the name, face, and voice. As we come to you from the Twin Cities of Minnesota, this is yours truly, Africa's media doobie-doo extraordinaire, the giant. Jirasi Tukbayege, Zabon Blue Dan, and Jakuwa Mewachiraji, and now you know me, Garley. Welcome. Our friend and brother, James T. Fisk, as we wait for the rest of the panel, want to say welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ash, for welcoming me to yet another explosive episode of British Radio Africa. Of course, uh, I'm joining you to invite all of our listeners and viewers um, to sit back and, of course, enjoy another entertaining and explosive episode. Thank you.
How was the weekend?
I mean, the weekend is always okay, always quiet. I usually use my weekends to hang out with family, friends, do some research, and the rest of it. Yeah.
Okay, so later on in the program, we are going to be taking the listen at the editorial. What do you have in store for us tonight later on in the program?
I'll be looking at charisma because last week I usually pick the topic based on what was discussed the previous week, and last week we had an extensive engagement with the public about charisma. So I decided to do some additional research on it and provide, elucidate a little bit more on that topic so that the public can get at least my take, uh, a researched take on the issue. So that's what we'll be looking at tonight.
The Reverend Idatus added, hello, my brother. Welcome to the show.
Mr. Garlic, greetings to all of you wonderful Liberians. Greetings to you wonderful panelists. A pleasure to be back one more time.
Okay. How was the weekend,
Thank you.
Idatus?
Hectic, but I'm glad to be alive. God be the glory.
Great. This is Lexi Brooks Roberts, our co host. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Garley. How are you guys? How are you? How was your weekend? How have you been? Miss you all. It's great to be back. We want to give God the glory for another week and another session back here to engage our people. But as we do that, I just want to take, if we would, take a moment of silence for our fallen heroes and fellow citizens of this great country. Over 30 countries were affected by this 9/11 um, terroristic attack. And so not just Liberians, but countries all over the world have lost heroes. And so with that, I'll say, please, Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
Back back to you.
thank you. Now we will go to Idatus to give us the political menu for the night. But just before we do that, uh, high on the agenda tonight: elections 2023, the road to change in Liberia, and of course, this is the bridge that connects the 15 political subdivisions in Liberia. Mr. Ade,
Well, there's a little echo there. I don't know where it's coming
Yeah, I
from.
don't know. Is it?
I think that the background there is coming from I don't know. Do we still have that echo?
Much better now.
Okay.
Well, for the last few days that's pending for these elections, we see that campaigns are being heightened. Standard bearers are moving throughout the length and breadth of Liberia, attempting to win the hearts and minds of the Liberian people. We saw the CDC put up a mammoth crowd at the ATS, but attempted to magnify the perception of the crowd, by inflating the numbers. While it's true we can congratulate them for the turnout. And then we'll also see that the Unity Party by the 17th will be launching its mammoth crowd display in reference to convincing the Liberian people as the best choice for the new Liberia. So things are really heightened, but at the same time, the road to changing this country's destiny is also shrouded in this incumbency of corruption, drug proliferation. As recently we saw that Front Page Africa reported, drugs came into the country under the security eyes of Mr. Samuel Freeman, who then stated that those boxes of drugs that were captured belonged to Finabono, something that she's denied. And she said, it's not hers, but the president's. And now Mr. Freeman was interviewed and he also denied. So journalists were welcome to look at those boxes and see what were in them as far as the contents were concerned. But then they were later put out of the office when the boxes were open and then they called them back in. So there is some discrepancy. The cloud of suspicion remains very potent over this government. And certainly we have the passport saga where our passport has been sold to people for money. And it's quite sad that the dignity of our civility has been compromised by this government.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Liberians are being scrutinized now as they travel the length and breadth of the world. And so all of these things are very troubling for our nation state, not to mention the fact that the NEC stated that they do not have enough money should there be a rerun. Up to now, they only received $49 million, and they're looking towards receiving $53 million. So as it stands
I'm
now,
not
Liberia
sure.
certainly
Can you
needs
hear me?
much.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes. So
Can
these are
you
just
hear?
the basic highlights of what is happening now in our country. And we're looking forward to October 10th for the new government to be seated. And Liberians should go to the polls. Thank you.
Well, let us begin with the alleged drug smuggling in Liberia.
Something is wrong.
And we can hear you loud and clear, Mrs. Roberts. Nothing is wrong. And I want to begin with Dr. James T. Fisk. Dr. Fisk, uh, I want us to talk about coach in Liberia. You listen to will be voters chanting, "We want coach, we want coach, we want coach," and you just heard Idatus uh, talked about the alleged drugs box at the RIA. It is also alleged that the drugs belongs to Finabono, something she said it was a lie. It is not hers. But our people, our children, our brothers and sisters, taking something, a drug, what is known to be called coach. And when you see our brothers and sisters taken to the streets that we want coach, under this president, we have never seen something of such of this kind in our country, where you will see a man walks to the light pole and starts to bang his head on the pole. I don't know what's the aftermath, what's gonna happen to that kid or that young man after all is said and done. Drugs is at its epic for the first time in our country, simply because we have a president who is a dope fan. And taking drugs is something that he enjoys. Our country is in trouble. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, thank you, Ashford. We should note that several months ago, you had some individuals who were accused of bringing drugs into the country, and then they were the legal system was used to release them from prison, from jail, and then within less few hours after they were released, they left the country. So basically, drugs came into the country and it went with impunity. So we have a tendency in Liberia of trying to turn our presidents into kings overnight. In other words, giving them complete authority. Okay, this whole kingship is an ancient concept, and kings had complete authority; they were unquestioned. So once there's a political adage that says power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you have a situation where you don't have a system that's established, so everybody is doing the job, what you have is a situation in which you have people at the very top who think that they can basically do anything and everybody is disposable. In other words, they put you there to be able to, it's a patron client kind of relationship between not only the civil society, but between those at the top and those they appoint to be civil servants. So civil servants are not doing the job. So you don't have a system in Liberia. So people then bring drugs into the country. But if you think that is bad, because it is bad, because I mean you have a terrible system that has to be reversed. Okay, especially when it comes to trying to treat those people who are becoming addicted to those substances. Okay, but if you think that's bad, and the exit gate of Liberia is that porous, then think about international flights and the implication that somebody can just slip anything through Liberia as a weak point. Okay, a terrorist attack or something like that through Liberia because it has been identified as a weak point. So it is important to have democracy, but it is dangerous to have a pseudo democracy because then you begin to have these kinds of situations obtaining. So the sooner Liberia can fix its problem, the sooner the Liberians can get it, that no one is coming to fix Liberia but Liberians themselves. They will start to make responsible decisions that will help them themselves to understand that they are responsible for the things that they do towards the nation. So that's what I have to say about it.
Letty Brooks Roberts, the coach epidemic is causing a very serious trouble for our younger brothers and sisters in that country. Uh, some of the drug users, I don't like the phrase Zoko. Our some of our challenged brothers and sisters are asking for help. They are asking to be
Yeah.
rehabilitated, but yet you see,
Can you
you
imagine?
seen the chief of staff or the chief of protocol to the president dishing out money, and as she dishes out the money, they go and buy the drugs and start to use these drugs.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mr. Garley. It is true that the young people are begging for help. Most places here in the West, or here, in the West rather, there are usually either anonymous places you can go or call numbers and say, you know, I need help. They don't ask you any question whether it's push, whether you're abused, whether whatever. they give you someone to counsel you. You tell them your issue, and they align you with what part of which help you need. Unfortunately, our young people are selected. Even with while we give him effort for doing that, Mr. The Senator Dillon and a few other places, but these people are selected. When you have a pandemic of young people affected by the very leaders to to um to to be the quote unquote cheerleaders. It's like because no one can be in their right state of mind to cheer you on, seeing how you abuse their lives, but you are giving them substance to keep them in need of your services or of your allegiance, for lack of a better word. So it's unfortunate that our young people are being used in this way, and they're pleading, the few that come to themselves after a while, or have people that are trying to get them off, like holding them accountable. They are asking for help, and it's a sad day when we have a woman vice president. We have a president who says he's been there, done that. That's when you are more relatable, when you have been there and you do that, or you have done that. But apparently he's still doing that, so he hasn't recovered to have empathy for the plight of our young people.
Well, the 31st of August, that's when red flag was raised uh, at the RIA concerning Samuel Freeman, who happens to be the security director at the RIA. Why are they having press conference now on the 11th?
Thank
We'll
you.
come back following this break, and we will begin with Idatus added on that. With that, we want to go to our monthly or weekly editorial by Dr. James T. Fisk. Dr. Fisk.
Thank you, Ashford. And again, welcome to all of our listeners and viewers out there. So, the editorial for today is on the topic the role of charisma in electoral and non electoral politics. As I always do, in order to follow the discussion for today, it's first important to provide context. In other words, define where the word charisma came from and what it means. The word is originally Greek that was later used by the Romans to describe favor, divine gifts, special spiritual gifts or powers divinely conferred, or talent from God. The verb charistheia means to favor, and the noun charis means grace. In short, a person who has charisma has a spiritual power or a personal quality that gives them influence or authority over large numbers of people. Although it is tempting to assume that you are either born with charisma or you don't have it, research shows that anyone trained in charismatic leadership tactics can become more influential, trustworthy, and leader-like in the eyes of others. Now, now that we understand charisma, it is important is it important in electoral and non-electoral politics? To answer this question, one needs to understand the goals of politics in general. According to Machiavelli, politics is essentially tied to the acquisition of power and the use of force. He goes further to say that the way the civil prince gains such power is through fortunate astuteness and the favor of his fellow citizens. Said another way, regardless of how good your policies are, if you do not enjoy the favor of the citizens, you do not get to control state power. And that favor is synonymous with charisma. To be sure, there is an argument against charisma describing it as a social phenomenon rather than an individual trait, and that it is only episodic and transient. The argument against charisma goes further to say that uh, political leadership is more than behaving charismatically, delivering results in the form of economic growth, educational advances, health and medical services, and national self respect are more important and more lasting. However, despite the arguments to the contrary, it still remains that to accomplish any goal related to state power, you first have to acquire it, making even Machiavelli to acknowledge that the end justifies the means. Indeed, the essence of spending so much time on charisma in politics is because charisma has long been a powerful tool for leaders to rise to greatness. In this regard, we can name the likes of Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, and sadly, Charles Taylor. In each of these cases, the personalistic or charismatic ties that such leaders forge with the followers were central to their abilities to profoundly change the political landscape for the better or the worse in the case of Charles Taylor. How did such leaders foster deep, unmediated emotional attachments with their constituents to generate loyalty? How did they do it? Scholars indicate that a leader's charisma, defined as supernatural, superhuman, or at least specifically exceptional powers or qualities, plays a central role in the cultivation of these ties. Importantly, it is not the objective existence of these characteristics, but rather the follower's perception of them in the leader that cultivates personalistic attachments. What we've said so far is that charisma is an attribute that a person has either from birth or it is a skill set that can be learned through such means as a charismatic leadership tactics training. The importance of charisma is its ability to establish a bond between a leader and his followers based on perceptions. In politics, and especially electoral politics, which has always been a game of numbers, the goal of a politician is to always get as many followers as possible. Although charisma plays a big role in the latter, we have to acknowledge that there are multifaceted reasons why people vote that has nothing to do with charisma. These can include political party lawyer identification, ethnic identity, perceptions of public opinion, as well as the impact of people who are significant to an individual voter. Long story short, because the reasons why people prefer one leader to the next can be as a result of rational and irrational factors, I argue that the best thing any politician can do for themselves during these elections in Liberia is to check off the charisma box. That is because, as previously stated, charisma has long been a powerful tool for leaders to rise to greatness. I thank you.
That was today's editorial with Dr. James T. Fisk, DNP. Thank you, Dr. Fisk, for that
You're welcome.
splendid
Yeah.
editorial. Okay, we're back, folks. If you just joining us, this is Ashford Garley Live on Brace Radio Africa. We want to say a big thanks and welcome to Ambassador Mayo Mayo. We also like to say welcome to Elvis Morris, welcome to Princess Johnson, and welcome to Tonia Brooks. Back to reality. Drugs, bugs at the RIA was heard of happened on the 31st. Why are we now hearing about this on the 11th of September? Let us begin with Idatu's Ade.
Well, that's pretty much simple. You're just hearing about it because it was exposed. It wasn't meant to be exposed, but thank God for the exposure. So as a result of the exposure, now they're acting as if they're investigating this truth several weeks later. The fact remains Liberia is at a dying state that needs to be rescued. And that is why when Dr. Fisk read about charisma, A visionary leader has a responsibility to take Liberia away from individuals who are currently leading our country down the path of destruction. This drug called Kush is a reality. It's all in Africa, originated in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Western India. It's now all over Africa. Even Sierra Leone is a victim of this synthetic combustible form of marijuana laced with TCH psychoactive ingredients. We have a problem in our country, and our leadership of the government that we have now is not doing anything to resolve it. Much of our young people are stranded in the streets, living on kush, looking weird like zombies. And what is our government's program? Bringing more drugs. 140 million now we see all of these different things tied specifically and directly to the president's office, from the sanction of Mr. McGill to now Finabono being shrouded into drug-related activities. Make no mistake, the international community is looking. The world is watching. How this particular government cannot be exonerated from the infiltration and proliferation of drugs in our country. It is a fact. It is detrimental to us, and that is why Liberians need to come out on October 10 to make this necessary change for the greater good of the country. The generation that we're supposed to be educating have chosen drugs because of frustration, poverty. It's sad. Liberia needs change, and change must have now. Thank you.
Dr. Fisk, some concerned citizens are calling on the Justice Minister to arrest Finabondo because of alleged involvement or her tie to the drugs that was allegedly smuggled in the country via the RIA. What say you?
Yeah, I was just kill two birds with one stone because someone was saying that, oh, one of the viewers was like, I've criticized all of the political actors who are running for the presidency, but I need to name who I think is the best person to run Liberia. Okay, I would name the best person. It's not the best person, and we need a system of government that is working, because once the system is in place, then what happens is that people don't get um, um, kicked out of office for doing the job. If everyone is doing the job right, if all the legislators are legislating, all the judicial officials, irrespective of money, are judging impartially and the rest of that. So, in other words, once the system is set up, okay, where it's possible, if anybody come and decide that they must bring drug into the very well, you can be president or whoever, you end up going to jail. Then, of course, you have a system that's going to work fine. Okay, so and then the argument is that, oh, but you need a person to bring in the system. No, in actual sense, you just need what is on ground to work well, so that things will work in the interest of the people. So, long story short, to answer your question, Ashwa, um, we cannot address the problems of drugs and the infestation that it is causing in our country if we don't put pressure. In other words, citizens of Liberia, through their votes, put pressure on political actors in the country to do the right thing. And I've always said this: one of the best things, one of the best narrative that would be taken out of these elections if George Weah lost, is that Liberian people cannot be taken for granted anymore. That if you come to power and you do the wrong thing and allow drugs infestation and the rest to come into the country, you become a one-term president. And it's even sad, okay, and it shows the lack of system, that the civil society will be calling on the justice minister to do his work. So it just tells you that there's a complete breakdown of a system. That's why I spoke of pseudo democracy as it's almost like a person who's not very educated but think they are. Those kind of people are very dangerous to convince, because why? Or what they know is what they think it is. Okay, so that's the kind of situation that's happening in Liberia. There's no system in the country. So somebody was saying, "Oh, Cummings is going to make the best president." Blah blah blah. I'm like, what if Cummings got a bunch of people who are not doing the right thing or are not prepared to do the right thing, or Cummings doesn't have the political will to allow them to do the right thing? At the end of the day, you still have those problems. So what needs to happen is that the citizens need to be invested in making sure that the institutions in Liberia work, that the system work, the need to protest and the rest of it, so that the country works fine. So that even if George Weah become president for the next 6 years, or maybe Cummings get there, or maybe Waka, whoever, people know that if they commit a crime, they will serve the time. That is not what is happening. So at the end of the day, people, there's this culture of impunity that has been in existence in Liberia for a long time that needs to come to an end. It's incompatible with a concept of democracy. Uh, 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 lack of accountability and the rest of it. Those things are not compatible. Either you have a democracy that is working and the systems are working fine, or you have a pseudo democracy in which there's a complete breakdown of law and order. And that's what is happening in Liberia. So then you have the citizens stepping up and calling on the justice minister to do his job.
Well, just before we go to Lighty Brooks Roberts, we will have a very special edition of Ashford Garley Live this Wednesday, a sponsored program where we will have Mr. Akina Phillips. Mr. Phillips is the senior policy advisor on energy, the economy, and national development for the Robert Morris and Cecilia Coffee Brown campaign. And the 2 hours will go exclusively to Mr. Phillips and the campaign he represents to tell us about their plan for Liberia. That will be this Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, via British Radio Africa. Letty Brooks Roberts, George Weah said, quote, I don't know anything about this presidency. People forced me to come here. He said he didn't want to be here. He was forced to the presidency. Today, you have the likes of Finabondo, who happens to be one of the closest people to him, the chief of protocol. Her name has been involved in all kinds of evil things, from putting the trigger in killing early in Nimba, now smuggling drugs in the country. Her name is mentioned. She's carrying firearm now. Whether she was trained to use that firearm, we don't know. Our country is in trouble. Mrs. Roberts, please unmute your device.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you for that question. Again, if someone said they weren't interested in something and they have tried it and see that they're still not good at it, you would think he will walk away peaceably and say, you know what, I tried. And I thank you guys for imposing your trust in me. And, with that, I will not contest. But because of ego and some of the people around him, he still wants to pretend he can do another 6 years. And the people say if in the beginning of something is where you know how it's going to go. If in the first 6 years you have shown us who you are, why shouldn't we believe you? But what I am, aside from Fina Bundle, and again, she has come up. She denies that she knew anything about um, you know, what happened. But that's natural. Like somebody's going to say, yes, I authorized people to bring the drug. And I heard somebody else make this point. When you go through security at any airport in the world, not even just the West, and there's something suspicious in your travel, whether it be just in your pocketbook. I have left a nail clip or something going through the court system and I had to go back out, either throw it away or they confiscate it. That actually those were my two choices. But it was some a little case that I had just bought. What I did, I went back out. I put it somewhere. When I come back out, if I lost it, fine. If I didn't, fine. And went back through security. That's normal in all countries, all thriving systems. But you have a clean land and people take away a whole bunch of things off. They didn't go through the regular customs or the right process. And then when they ask who has it, the person who has it, of course, gives the name that that has that doesn't follow any rules. Apparently, she must be above the law, and they let it go through. So why do we wait 11 days? Or yeah, 11 days. Now you come back and say in front of the cameras, this is what it was. Liberians, I will use Fina Bondo own song, yo, young people. If y'all want to be fooled again, continue to listen to these people. Your young people are the ones that can make a difference in Liberia. When we had a change in this country, it was the young people, grassroots, that brought in a young, energetic generation that most young people have thrived, have enriched themselves in education because they wanted something that they could relate to, and that was Barack Obama. You did that. Let's give it to you. You did that for George Weah. George Weah has shown you that he doesn't care for you. What president goes on stage to speak and then, Letitia is so eloquent, I'm going to give her a scholarship? That's not how it works. Oh, the whole country, the whole college, I'm just going to give them. No, it's not your money, Mr. President. It's the country's money, and it goes through procedure. If you find someone that is so that's endearing of this scholarship, that's a great thing to recommend her when you leave the stage. But stop fooling the people that, I would give you this, give you that. You didn't speak to them for 6 years or five and three quarters months. And all of a sudden, everywhere you go, you are doing good. All of a sudden, you are the president of the people. You didn't speak to them. I heard in County speaking the language. Stop finessing, for lack of a better word, our people. You finna bundle we are her brother, the vice president. Just stop using our resources. Just stop
Thank you.
abusing our country because, as someone said, yes, one more minute, 1 second rather. Someone said, what they are doing affects all Liberians because everywhere we go, when they see we have that logo or that nationality, we may be delayed a little longer because they don't know what we are up to. Thank you.
That is who can change the narrative about coach, about delivering our brothers and sisters in that country. Let us take a look at the campaigns. Cummings was in bombing Bapulu. Now he's headed to Cape Mount. Boycott is in bombing tomorrow. And speaking of charisma, I listened to the chairman of the Unity Party in District 15, New Town. Man, did he inspire the people? The narrative has to change. Joshua is well on his way to the United States. Who can deliver this country? People are saying that the message is clear that they don't want George Weah. One of the opposition leaders said the campaign message for George Weah is one round. That their message. In the words of Louis Brown, he said if there's gonna be one round, Cummings gonna win the presidency in the first round. Others are saying Boycott will win the presidency. Why it is being narrated by Joshua and his people, there is one round victory. The change that Liberia needs. Election 2023, the road to change in Liberia. Who becomes the next president of Liberia? Idatu Zade.
Well, certainly, Ashford is absolutely clear that the train is large enough to take as many, many other political parties tender bearers to join and make this a one round victory. And that vision can only be realized in the light of Mr. Joseph Yuman Boyka, ambassador. So it's very clear that his vision inspires people and as a matter of fact, vision is a reflection of charisma, the ability to inspire people to devotion, to the national good of the country. And when you read our vision for Liberia, we talk about arrest and we listed 6 pillars consistent with human capacity development, dealing with anti-corruption, which is tied into the proliferation of drugs in our country, instituting the rule of law, reorganizing our economic improprieties we find ourselves in, persecuting those who have embezzled, stolen government's money. So it's very clear that the Honorable Joseph Imamboyka possesses the ability to deliver Liberia, and that is why it's self-styled rescue. He understands how dire a need it is for Liberia to be removed from such decadence of a leadership under President George Weah. And make no mistake, he was absolutely correct. He was forced to become president by virtue of the fact that those who were our political leaders saw very clearly that George Weah, as a football celebrity, could have stayed in his lane, but they saw him as a political asset and gave him visibility in this arena. This doesn't happen in many countries. You don't see footballers who are, not in the area of political leadership finding themselves leading a country. This only happens in Liberia. And these are some of the downsides of democracy. Unfortunately, based on this reality, this is where we are now. The football celebrity is unable to deliver politically by virtue of the fact that when you look at the sports arena of Liberia, we are at an all-time low. Look at the SKD in serious infrastructural mess to be completely rejected by the FIFA. So it's clear that he doesn't have the capacity to lead, and he's absolutely right. The visibility that came with the responsibility of leading this country proves much more in his failures to deliver Liberia from where it is now. And that is why we are encouraging all Liberians come October 10 to secure the promise of a better Liberia in the person of Joseph Imampo. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to welcome Mr. Nehemiah Garley, a Liberian based out of Minnesota. He's my cousin, and he's a political enthusiast and wants to be a part of the conversation tonight. Mr. Nehemiah Garley,
Yes,
we-
sir.
we'll give you 1 or 2 minutes, so please introduce yourself.
You said it all already, but I'm a businessman. I stay away from politics. I will talk politics once in a while. So I'm happy to be on your show, and thanks for the invite. Hi,
Okay,
everybody. Yes.
okay.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Want to go back to Dr. Fisk. Dr. Fisk, you mentioned the lack of charisma by Cummings. Now, Louis Brown is in the news saying he hopes to see free, fair, and credible election in Liberia. And George Weah's campaign message is one round. Louis Brown is saying if there will be a one round victory in Liberia, Cummings is that guy, and Cummings is in the position to become the next president of Liberia. Unlike you, that was attacked last weekend by the Cummings supporters about questioning his ability of not having charisma. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, the thing is, Louis Brown need to understand that electoral politics is a game of numbers. I think I mentioned that when I was as part of my essay, as part of the editorial. And whether Cummings is going to be that person who's going to take it the first round, and that's it. You need to ask yourself, what's the percentage of Liberians that are issue voters? Okay, because if people are voting strictly on the issues, and if politics is logical, like I said last week, then what it means is that Cummings should be a real contender in this stuff. But like I mentioned, and I talk about charisma, because charisma propel people to greatness. And even though there are arguments against charisma that says that at the end of the day, it's about what you do, what you are able to provide in terms of goods and services for the people. That's what matters in the end. First thing that needs to be understood is that you first need to get power to be able to deliver any kind of goods. And to get power, you have to get people to have a positive perception of who you are as an individual. That's where charisma comes in. So sometimes people will forget the issues, okay, but they will remember something that you did, something that you said. Okay, so it is some people it's innate to a number of people, but for some people they have to learn it, and it's just tragic that someone would be in a game with the goal of not wanting to win. Okay, because if you are in a game and your goal is to win in that game, then of course you have to do take whatever steps legally necessary to win that game. Okay, so that's where and like I talked, well, God did editorial, I did my research. Charisma is one of those political tools that is very effective when it comes to getting people your way. I mean, look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is under 4 indictments, but the guy is charismatic. So you have 70 something percent of American people saying that this guy should not be tried. It's charisma that does that. Okay. Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, he was in jail for so many years. The second he came out, the popularity is still there. That's charisma that does that. So Cummings can have all of the lofty policies, but if he's projecting charisma, the people will gravitate towards him because of the charisma versus the issues, because they've already understood that he knows the issues. Okay. So whether he's going to be a one-round president of or not, Louis Brown and the rest of them who working for Cummings, are they speaking because are they doing likely voters in Liberia to come up with the number to say that Cummings is going to be that one round president? Has he come up with any of those numbers, and did he provide those numbers to the person that he spoke with, or did the person hold his foot to the fire to ask him what is the basis upon which he's making that statement that Cummings is going to, if there's anybody who's going to be a one rounder, is going to be Cummings? So I mean, I don't just listen to people just throwing words out there, and that's the irresponsibility of politics, because he needs to understand his own level within the hierarchy of the
Thank you.
CPP, and therefore just making these statements that could potentially incite people to violence if they don't get their way is supposed to be something that you should seriously consider in making these statements.
James, can I come in for a second? I don't know.
I want to hold on, Nehemiah. I want to go to Letty Brooks Roberts. Then after her, you will come in, Mrs. Roberts. Let us speak to Liberia because we are headed to elections in 30 days. People don't vote for you because you are handsome or beautiful. People don't vote for you in Liberia because you have money. They have to like you, and they have to take your message and absorb your message. In this case, numbers is the key. Cummings and his supporters can come on to say if there's anybody who gonna win these elections in the first round will be Alexander Cummings. Where are the numbers, Mrs. Roberts?
Uh, that's a great question regarding the numbers. The status, statisticians who have followed elections are playing with those numbers. That's not my area. I didn't follow their numbers, per se. Why the numbers are there, but that's those are that's a static thing right now, because with Liberia, I mean, numbers do matter in most cases, statistics, right? But in our country's case, it's more than just numbers. It's the wind. It's other things. other things, right? It's your message. But most importantly, it's it's the state of the nation. There are a lot of people that for fear of their lives. I share an episode this morning that a gentleman was a family sleeping in their home. A truck of people that claim to be authority of the police just come in the middle of the night, 4 in the morning, and start to knock on your door. So security matters. People are not telling you their actual choices for lack of for security reasons. So those numbers from the past are not numbers that we can just bang on. For those who think, oh, in the first round last time you did this, you have 400,000 and blah blah blah. That was then. This is now.
Thank you.
The country is not secure that people will tell you exactly what they're doing. So people are there are a lot of silent voters.
I'm a guest on a shot. No, go ahead.
We want to bring in Mr. Nehemiah Garland, who frequents Liberia a lot, a businessman, but is concerned about his country as well. Mr. Garley.
Yeah. The first thing, yeah, James said it, partly right. And the thing about it, people can say whatever you want to say. For one, I've heard the argument from George Weah Group his first round. I heard the argument from Cummins his first round. And I sort of heard the argument from Boycott Group his first round. So everybody wish it could be first round. But you have to, again, look at the numbers. If we look at the Liberian politics, and let's just be clear, we vote based on tribal lines. Alexander Cummins does not have a tribal base. That's the first problem he poses. The second problem, his running mate doesn't have a tribal base either. So to just assume that it will win in first round is very, very, it's a dangerous place to be. You will be lying. I don't even think Cummins believe that he could win in first round. If you look at the numbers from the last election, and I always tell people, Prince Johnson, that Liberia cries for, say, oh, war crime court, beat Alexander Cummins in numbers. They're not voting on qualification. It's your tribal background. Cummins doesn't have that. Besides him being, he's not appealing to some people, he appeals to me. I like the guy. I'm not saying I'm voting for him. I like his profile. I like his resume. But Liberian people, those boys on the motorbike, they have never seen resume before. The market women that have never seen a resume before, they're not voting on resume. And let people remember, I was in Liberia the last election. They called for presidential debate. George Weah left the country. Nobody heard what George Weah was bidding on. And I have a buddy that made a clear point. When people say why Weah didn't show up to the debate, he said, why should Weah show up? The streets were debating for Weah. The boys on the street were debating for Weah. The masses were debating for Weah. He didn't have no reason to show up to a debate. He had the numbers. Cummins doesn't. So yes, they would be playing in a dangerous space with Cummins. If anybody tells Cummins that you can win in the first round, George Weah has a track record. I'm sure George Weah doesn't think he can win in the first round. Joseph Boyka has a track record. I'm hoping he doesn't think he can win this in the first round. This election is going to be an uphill battle. Alexander Cummins is going to be an uphill battle. And I can easily see a second round. Who's going to be in the second round? That's something we have to discuss.
Mr. Garley, let me just ask a quick question.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned that Cummins does not have a tribal base. Could you expand on that a little bit?
I can expand on that. And I'm not going to fight to be politically correct. Cummins doesn't have a county. Maryland.
Yes, he does.
Maryland, that Cummins said he came
Yes,
from,
he does.
never voted for Cummins in the last election. So when I say he doesn't have a tribal base, that's what I mean.
Are you saying he's not Gribble because he said he's Gribble? Even if they don't vote for him, you saying that he doesn't have a tribal base
you know
is
what?
different from saying that his tribal people are not supporting
You know
him.
what I told
Those are
people
two
the last
different things.
time.
When you say he doesn't have a tribal base,
You know
what do you
what?
mean by that?
You know what I told you the last time?
Mhm.
I said myself Russian. Does that make me Russian? I'm not. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna argue whether Cummings is from Maryland or not from Maryland. Let's look at Alexander Cummings.
So are we saying that he has a tribal base or not?
I'm saying he doesn't have a tribal base. He doesn't
Why
have the
is that?
support of a tribal
That's what I'm
group.
trying to understand. Why
He
is that?
doesn't.
Why
He
doesn't he
doesn't
have a
have the.
tribal base?
He doesn't have the support of a tribal group.
Okay, those are two different things. So are you now trying to adjust a statement to say he's not getting the support of his tribal group, but he actually has he's part of a tribal lineage because every
No, not
Liberian,
from a tribal background. He has a tribal background,
okay.
but he doesn't have that base. He doesn't have that group.
What's the
And
difference between
right,
tribal base and tribal background?
and Dr. Fitz, he is talking about a political
A
base
political
that
base.
would just follow him because, for example, George, we are from Grand Crew. We know that Grand Crew is going to vote
He
for
didn't
him.
say political
Joseph
base.
Boyka is
Political
from
base is a
Lofa. We know
different
Joseph
thing.
Boyka.
Okay, okay.
He didn't say
Lopez might
political base. He said tribal.
Might
He
overwhelmingly
doesn't have
vote
a
for him.
political base.
Okay, so that's what
Okay,
he's trying
guys,
to
one at a
explain.
time.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So what he's really saying, Dr. Fist, is he's not saying Cummings is not a agreeable man. Okay? Like for example,
But
when
let
you
him
think
clarify
Liberty
it.
Party.
I would like him to
No,
clarify
but
it.
I mean
No,
that's what I understood him
yes.
to mean when he spoke. Right? So
And
for
I
example,
understood
when
him when he said he
when
doesn't
they
have
let
a
Trump,
tribal base. When he said he doesn't have a tribal back, how he said it? I said tribal. I think he said tribal
he doesn't have a
background.
tribal base. He said
A
politics is
base.
tribal.
Yeah,
And
he
Mr.
said
Cummings
he
doesn't
doesn't
have a
have a
tribal
tribal base,
base.
and then he went one step
Yes.
further to say he can call himself Russian, even though he's not.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to understand from him, are you saying that Cummings doesn't belong to the Gribble tribe?
No, my brother.
Okay, so I just wanted to get that straight.
Cummings
Yeah,
is,
let
let
him
me clarify
clarify.
this. Cummings is Gribble. I don't know Cummings from anywhere. I've never interacted with Cummings before. Cummings say he's Gribble, he's Gribble. That's not my argument yet. But what I'm saying is Cummings does not have the support of, and Maryland is one of the smallest counties in terms of political numbers. He doesn't have the support of that county. You understand? And that's what I ask people all the time. Let us be realistic when we look at the elections. Which county do we think Cummings can win to beat in the first round? You need Nima. Uh-huh.
Can I
Yes.
interject?
Before you interject, can we go to
Yeah.
Idatu, then you can come in,
Uh-huh.
please, Mrs. Roberts? Because it was Idatu's turn.
Okay.
Okay, hold that thought, Mr. Garley. Idatu's, come in, please.
So right. So
I will
every
forget my train of thought, but anyway,
all right, no,
I
Madam
finish
Brooks.
forgetting.
Ms. Brooks, please go ahead. Actually, I will come in after her.
No,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I finish forgetting it. Go
Okay.
ahead. That's
Right.
it's
So
okay.
Next,
every political season got its own dynamics, right? Its own dynamics. So for example, Charles Taylor had his own dynamics. He didn't have a particular county, but he had a base, right? Base meaning by virtue of the fact that the Nimbayans were behind him. That was a base. When the late Samuel Kado was president, we clearly saw that if you held elections, Grandidians will vote for him. That's a tribal base. So what I understood Mr. Garlick to be saying is when we talk about base in politics, there are certain counties that are automatic. For example, you look at Lofa. When you think Joseph Boyka is in the Lomabo will vote for Joseph Boyka, so we're not even going to waste time campaigning in there. Same thing happens here in these United States. There are red states, blue states, because they have base. The Green Party and independent parties and all these people come about may find it difficult having a base. So I didn't understand him to mean that Cummings doesn't have a tribe or not. But when you look at our politics, is personality first, tribe, religion before political institution. So when you look at why Joseph Boyka remains the front runner and a potential candidate for for these elections coming, when you look at the spread of the numbers, you got two popular senators. Darius Dillon is in charge of Montserrat County. He overwhelmingly beat the CDC, which is their base. Look at Yombli Kanga in charge of Grand Bassa County. You know her popularity there as well. When you look at a Bassa belt, Montserrat County, Grand Bassa County, Margibi River sets. So we can see that because of the tribal connection to the Bassa people and how far they span, and now tend to be supporting Joseph Boyka by virtue of their senators who carry influence, it's possible that numbers will flow in that direction. When you look at the NPP, where you have Madam Joseph Howard Taylor, our vice president, and you look at James Barney, it has instituted a split within the NPP, of which James Barney will be part of the September 17th show of force coming very soon. When you also look at our president's party, the CDC that won those elections on the basis of a coalition from 38 to 68% in the second round, and Joseph Boyka from 28 to 38% in the last elections. That became a reality compounded with his celebrity status and the coalition that went behind him from Nimba. But quite frankly, we see now that Nimbayans, through their political leader, have transitioned his support to the Honorable Joseph Boyka. We see the NPP that has split and transitioned support through its most popular leader, James Bali, to that of Mr. Joseph Boyka, not to mention the vote-rich areas like Lofa County, Banga, Margibi, Grand Bassa Belt, Nimba. So the numbers are quite frankly in the trajectory of the incoming president, Joseph Imam Boyka, not because of just the numbers, but by virtue of the vision and the self-inflicted political wounds by this president, George Weah, by virtue of the proliferation of drugs, extra killings throughout the country, corruption, pilfering, the harmonization of the people's salary, the increase of rice on the market. All of
Thank you.
these things are politically self-inflicted wounds that put the numbers in that of Joseph Boyka's favor.
Thank Before I go to Dr. Fix, do you still want to interject, Mrs. Roberts? Go.
Yes, and to that point, the tribal thing is still what I'm talking about. So just as Dr. Reverend Ida said, George Weah has already showed the people that he has a record to run on. So it's not just going to be Maryland. There are people all over the country that are disgruntled, and they are not speaking out, like I said, for security reasons. So yes, there are numbers with people who know the numbers game, but there are a lot of people that have that unspoken desire to tell you who they're voting for, because the whole country is in dire need. So that's where
Elections.
everybody's going to speak when
Thank,
they get to that vote.
thank you. Dr. Fix, elections 2023, the road to change in Liberia. Do you buy the argument that was made by Mr. Nehemiah Garley that Cummings and his running mate don't have tribal base? Where is the change that we are looking for? If these elections should be about change, does this tribal base thing will still continue to linger in Liberia? Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean, there's so many ways to answer that question, and I was going to ask Mr. Gale to clarify before I even address that question because he mentioned that Charlene Bromskin cannot even win, deliver Green Bassa County to Cummings. And I wanted to ask, is it because you don't think that Charlene Green Bassa is a tribal base for Charlene or not?
James, James, let's be realistic with our conversation. Who knows the name Charlene Bromskin?
Well, Charlene Bromskin, people know the father of Charlene Bromskin.
Man, come
No,
on.
that was an easy question. If you are saying that she's not popular, then I can continue to expand on what I wanted to say.
Okay.
I just wanted a clarification because you started by giving the impression, but then you clarified that Cummings may not be agreeable because you mentioned I could say I'm Russian, but I'm not. Okay. So I just wanted you to clarify whether you saw Charlene as being a Bassa woman, even though I think she was in my country or whatever.
I've never met Charlene before.
Uh-huh.
I stand no ground to speak on her tribe. And
Okay, fine.
let me clarify something first, right?
Mm.
I've never met Cummings before. I have no ground to speak on his tribe. I threw a joke in there, just a joke.
Oh no. I mean, I just wanted that clarification before I talk.
I'll take it one step forward.
I was asked the question. It is good that you clarify
I will
that
take
you think Cummings is
one
agreeable.
step forward.
And yeah, you clarify that Cummings is agreeable and Charlene is Bassa, which is good.
Yes.
Okay, but when you look at this whole narrative of tribe is still gravitate towards what I discussed about today. Because Charles Taylor, when he was running to be president, he said he was Gola, right? What's the population of Gola people? But Charles Taylor won what? By how many percentage? What was it over? He won over 50% of Liberia, right?
James, let's start for a second. Now, when Charles Taylor came, the unborn
No,
baby.
but I'm talking now. Your time will come.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm talking. Your time will come. Yeah, okay. So, Charles Taylor won over 50%. Okay, so that whole myth about tribalism, I'm not saying it's not there. Charles Taylor, using charisma, broke that. Okay, who is another person who broke that myth, that tribalistic myth? Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. What Ellie said, she was Gola woman, right?
Let me clarify something, my brother.
No,
Mr. Gotti, please wait. Mr. Gotti, please wait your term. Wait your term, Mr. Gotti. I beg you.
Okay.
Ellie is another person who says she's Gola woman. Okay, and if we accept the premise that voting is a long tribal life in Liberia, then Ellie should not have been president of Liberia. But Ellie also won the presidency too, from being Gola, a small little tribe in Monserrato County. Okay, so all I'm saying is simply this. Okay, Liberians by and large may not necessarily be issue voters. Maybe things have changed because of the level of hardship in the country. Okay, so it is important that even if people look at the issues on the basis, use the issue as a basis, because even if they're using the issues as the basis to vote, then of course it becomes illogical that people will be even going after Boakai, because Boakai and Eileen were the reasons why George Weah was voted into office in the first place, because of the despondence of 12 years of a regime that Liberians felt did not deliver.
Thank you, Fisk.
Okay? So it doesn't make any sense.
No, Fisk. If you look at, there were a few key points you made. When you talk about Charles Taylor, if you remember, Charles Taylor went to Nima for vice president. You understand? Charles Taylor from Ogola, man. He didn't go to River G for vice president. He didn't go to Maryland for vice president. He went to Nima. That has a voting population. That has a number. When Ellen Johnson was running, she went to Lofa. Running mate. You understand? And that's and pay attention to the trend in our elections in Liberia. Samuel Doe came to office with gun. When he was running, he went to Lofa for vice president. You understand? Charles Taylor came with gun. When he was running, he ran to Nima for vice president. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, she went to Lofa for vice president. If you look at the three candidates we have today, Joseph Boyka ran to Nima for vice president. George Weah went to Bon County for vice president.
Charlene Brunsky was born in Nima.
Charlene
Brunsky was born in Nima.
Well, I didn't know that. Alexander Cummings ran to Bassa for vice president. So it's a tribal number game in Liberia. It's sad. It's a sad reality. I'm calling for us to change that, because until we can change that, we'll not have a qualified running mate. We'll always have a running mate from a big county.
You said Boycott or Cummings will be delusional if they say they can win in the first round. So who do you anticipate to be in the first round, in the second round, Mr. Garley?
You know, you put him in a tight spot as a businessman. I tell you, I'm not a politician, but if I have to take a guess, I'm not going to be surprised to see George Weah and Joseph Boyka in the second round. Alexander Cummings, I like the guy. I love his resume. But Liberian people are not voting on resume.
With the output of the campaign trail and the voters you see campaigning now, would you be surprised when you see Boycott and Cummings in the second round?
You know, I'll be very surprised. You know, I was in Liberia, ASHFORD, for the last election. It was my first time monitoring elections in Liberia. I saw numbers. I saw people. You understand? But one thing that I know on election day is different. Those people run. they run
Exactly.
behind those different parties now because some of them want what
Of
they
what
can
they
get.
can get.
They go to the port of vote is different. And I can tell you this election in Liberia, I believe it's going to be the most anticipated election. They're going to have a lot of turnout because there's too many people going to, everybody will come out to vote. They are voting their situation now.
Thank you. Let us go to Idatu's had it.
So who's going to make the second round?
Should I?
Ashford, can you hear me?
I can hear you
The
now.
question is who's going to make. Yeah. So the question is who's going to make the second round?
Yeah.
I mean, Ashford, it's very obvious that if you are using crowd as an anecdotal evidence and you're looking at the polls from the different radio stations and Facebook conducted the phone calls that come in on the radio stations, it's clear that Joseph Boyka is in the lead against this president. So it's a no-brainer. We could certainly secure a second round with the support of Alexander Cummings, Tiawan Gonglo, and the likes of other politicians within the 20 plus, the 20 parties registered in these elections. So we're highly confident that the numbers are definitely looking our way. The Liberian people are desperate for change, and they do not see that change in President George Weah, as evidenced by his failure to present a good leadership. We have become an international mockery, buffoon, unlike Joseph Boyka, who has put forth a plan around education as opposed to having tournaments within the ghettos. We have put forth a plan on education where our primary students will enjoy the benefit of quality education from early learning, primary, secondary, and high school. So there is a plan that has been laid out. We realize certainly in one of our pillows, pillow number 3, that we
Idatu's
need education to change.
Idatu's Nehemiah
Uh-huh.
said Prince Johnson beat Cummins in 2017. Letty Brooks Roberts said, "Don't look at 2017's numbers as it relates to boycott. Cummins has been or is the hardest working politician in Liberia. The last time you were in Liberia, Idatus, was 2012. The narrative has changed. Cummins is all over the place. So
So
my
last
question
time,
is,
uh-huh.
would you
Go
be
ahead.
surprised when you see Cummins to be one of those in the second round? That's what I'm saying.
Ali,
Okay. Well,
can
the
I
last
say
time,
something to Ashford quickly?
After Idatu,
go
you
ahead.
can interject before.
2017, Cummings, if you look at on the line, Cummings had more money than any other political party 2017. I hope you know that. He had more money than any political party. Cummings campaign
Okay.
just as much as any other political party. But he came what? I think fourth.
Cummins got into politics in 2015,
Seven.
and he participated in the election in 2017. He was then a political rookie at the time. But now, what we're seeing Cummins doing in Liberia, don't go to sleep. Don't go to sleep on him.
No, I don't think we should.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So well,
Mr. Garley,
Yes, ma'am.
so I thought I was speaking, but you go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. No,
go
So,
no,
ahead.
go
That
ahead.
right. So, make no mistake, we are determined to secure first round. We are not concerned about, other parties who may, whether or not they will become, they will go for the second round. What we are concerned about is when you look at the numbers and where they're trending is that we are poised to secure victory in this country. And it remains our hope that all of the 20 political parties, with the exception of the Coalition for Democratic Change, will be able to join us in securing a one-round victory. So we are very concerned that our level of patriotism will be brought to bear. Should there be a second round, that all of them will join and let this vision become a reality for the greater good of our country. We are not here to antagonize the opposition. We are here to encourage a unity that will foster change, that takes away this country from a government that is keep on consistently draining our international image, embezzling, stealing our money, poor education and healthcare, lack of security in the country. rampant corruption, proliferation of drugs throughout the country. We're asking people to join us. Let's make this a one round. And one round it must be, and it's very possible. It's
Well,
very
folks,
possible.
if you just joining us, this is Ashford Garley Live on Bridge Radio Africa. This program comes your way Mondays and Tuesdays on Bridge Radio Africa. This Wednesday, we have a special edition of the program where we play host to Mr. Akina Phillips. Akina Phillips is the Senior Policy Advisor on Energy, the Economy, and National Development for the Robert Morris and Cecilia Covey Brown campaign. He will appear as special guest on the program where he will tell us about their plans for Liberia, the how, the when, as we approach these elections on October the 10th. And again, folks, we want to go to the telephone lines now. If you are interested in being a part of the show, all you have to do, please dial 267 248 5295. 267 248 5295. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, I just want to swing back to what Mr. Gale said. He said Charles Taylor went for vice president in Nimba County, but it was not Nimba alone that voted for Charles Taylor. Charles Taylor still was a Gola guy and got Ino Dogolie, but he swept the election in Liberia. So that whole tribal meet was busted by Charles Taylor. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf went to Lofa County, but it was not only Lofa that voted for Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Ellen Johnson busted that meet as well. Okay, so what all I've said, okay, most of the time Liberians are not necessarily issue voters because people just love Ellen because of her charisma, even though she said a lot of things, made a lot of promises. Okay, but because she was a charismatic figure, and what she represented a degree of charisma in itself, being the first woman president and the rest of it. Those are the things that carry her through. So it superseded that whole tribal meet and what have you. Okay, and we can go down the line. Any other person you present for discussion, what you will see is that there was an overwhelming victory. Okay, so all I'm saying is simply this: if politics was logical, there's no reason why Bouaga should be in the second round. Because why? It is because of the policies of Bouaga and Ellen. That's why you got Josh Weah. Okay, if politics was logical, George Weah should not even be thinking about a one-term victory. And the reason for that is all you have to do is look at the level of despondency in the country. Everyone is crying. Okay, now if you have people getting up in the streets and saying we want kush, we want drugs and the rest of it, then you have a segment of the population, which is why democracy is kind of dangerous in the African setting, because those who instituted democracy, the premise of democracy is that the majority will identify the better good for society and pursue it. But that is not what is obtaining in most African countries. Democracy is about personality and personality rooted in charisma and the rest of it. Okay, so people are not looking at the issues. So all I'm saying, if politics was logical, I'm not a Cummings person, but if politics was logical, Liberians would be looking at people like Tiawan Gonglo. If politics was logical, people would be looking at Cummings. If politics was logical, people would be looking at this other person who's supposed to appear on Wednesday. These are the people Liberians will be looking at. There's all this argument about, Joseph Boakai did this, Joseph Boakai, but the biggest argument against Joseph Boakai, okay,
30 seconds.
You were there for 12 years, and in as much you said that you were a park car, you should have had a park salary as well. It doesn't show any integrity that you would take salary for 12 years. It doesn't show with Prince Johnson giving his support to Joseph Boakai, that whole noise about war crimes code, that thing is dead on arrival in Liberia. Nobody is going to seek justice for Prince Johnson after Prince Johnson had delivered the presidency to Joseph Boakai. Politics is quid pro quo. You scratch your back, I scratch your back. So these are things we need to consider.
Thank you.
So let me respond to him if you can.
Hold on. Can we just Hold on,
No,
folks.
yeah, I want to.
Hold on.
I want
Okay,
to
please write it
respond.
down. I want to go to the telephone line now, please. Thank you.
That's fine.
Hello, caller. Tell us your name. Hello, caller. Tell us your name. Do I have
Hello,
a
Mr. Gotti. How you doing? This is Elvis calling from
Hey,
Minnesota.
Elvis? How you doing? I'm better than good. Go ahead with
All right,
your thought.
great. And hello to the panelists. I just want to make some clarification regarding Dr. Fisk and Mr. Nehemiah exchange when it comes to tribal, you know, lineage. Let's not beat around the bush. Cummings has a tribe, but it's not a significant, it's not a politically significant tribe in terms of numbers. He's a Congo man. The Congo people should be recognized as a tribe, as I think, as Dr. Fisk has been advocating on this platform. His father is Congo. As far as we know, we don't know any of his parentage that was, Gribble, especially his, patrilineal lineage. So he's a Congo man. Shouldn't run away from it. Charlene Bromsky's father is a Congo man from Grand Bassa County. We know the Bromskins are Congo people. The Southern Grand Bassa, they're Congo people. They have a tribal group. So there's nothing wrong with saying that Cummings is a Congo man rather than he's not really a Gribble man. That's why the Gribble people are not really considering him to be quote unquote one of them. That's why they're not voting for him. Nothing wrong with that. When you're talking about Charles Taylor and Ellen Jones Sirleaf, those are special circumstances. Charles Taylor brought war. He had the biggest gun. People wanted peace. They voted for him. Not necessarily because he was so charismatic. It's because he was dangerous and he would have thrown a tantrum fit. You know? If he didn't get his way. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf lost the first round of the election in 2005. She coalesced around influential people, and the international community wanted her. That's why she won the election. If Ellen Johnson Sirleaf ran today in Liberia against George Weah, where we are, she won't win an election. I can guarantee you that. So don't say that they the tribal politics didn't play a factor in those special circumstances. I think we both know tribal politics in Liberia go across every tribe. If
Th-
you're a crime man running for politics, the crime people will vote for
Thank
you.
you,
If you're a
Elvis.
Loma man, the Loma people will vote for you. It's that simple. Nobody should lie to you and say it doesn't matter. It does matter. And
Thank
Cummings is not a Gribble man. He's a Congo man. Let's clarify that. Thank you.
thank you. I think it
Can I
was.
respond in 2 minutes? In 1 minute?
Go ahead.
Okay. So Elvis, you are saying that because Charles Taylor brought gun, he was not charismatic, and Liberian people voted for Charles Taylor out of fear. No, I disagree. Hitler killed a lot of people, but the reason why people follow Hitler is because he was charismatic. Toussaint Louverture, the guy that liberated Haiti, a black slave. This guy was also charismatic, so he led a lot of people to rebel against the French people and killed them up. Okay, so you can't say because somebody, and most of the people, most of the freedom fighters in Angola and the rest of it, most of those guys, they picked up arm and they were able to get people to go along with them. That's charisma. That's the same charisma we talked about. So a lot of people, despite minus arms, a lot of people love Charles Taylor. Even if he brought Charles Taylor to Liberia now and put Charles Taylor on the ballot, it's possible Charles Taylor can win these elections. Now, you
James,
take all the arms and
Thank you,
everything,
James.
but
Thank you,
he's
James.
charismatic.
Hold our thought.
James.
I think it was no.
No,
That
I
was
want to say something quick. Less than 2 seconds. As much as the people love Charles Taylor, when Charles Taylor leaving the jump in the street or happen, the same
That's the
people
same
that are
people. That's the same people who could jump in the street and vote for him. I won't put it past the ability of Liberians to vote for Charles Taylor. Don't put it past Liberians.
okay.
you
Yeah.
got to say
So yeah, so I just want to address the issue of Joseph Boycott, parkour, and so forth. Listen, the 12 years under Unity Party was much better than the years we have under George Weah. We didn't have this much drugs. Our education system was better. The people were making much more money, much more dollars than this government that harmonized salaries. All right. The Zogo's proliferation was, the Zogo throughout the length and breadth of Liberia was not as rampant under this government. Corruption under this government cannot be compared to that of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government, where you have a president's office experiencing a sanction to his immediate right hand lieutenant. So there are so many things that happen better. You had a debt liquidation, 12 years on an Ellen government. Under this government, they've amassed more debt compared to what was liquidated. So let's be very clear. The difference is absolutely clear. Under the Unity Party government, of which Mr. Boyka was the vice president, they paved more roads today in Liberia compared to this government. The difference is clear. Rice was cheaper under Ellen government compared to this government. Civil servants were getting paid predominantly on time under Ellen's government compared to this government. The airport was much more secure under Ellen's government, where electricity was constant compared to this government, where the lives of people were constantly in danger and had to land in Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, or perhaps Guinea. So the
Thank you.
difference is clear. There is no comparison here concerning what we have now in the context of our international reputation under Madam Ellen Johnson's short leave administration, in like of Joseph Boyka, as well as, in comparison to this government. So
Thank
the
you.
difference is clear.
Can I
Thank
take a
you.
minute to respond to that?
Hold on. Can you please do that in your closing, because Tom has caught up with us, and I just want to say a big thanks to all of you who have taken up time to view the show tonight. We will be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. Mr. Fisk, you can respond and then do your closing afterwards.
Okay. So under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, you had the entire international community supporting the government with the presence of armed soldiers. You don't have that in Liberia now. Under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, when Liberia almost discovered oil, do you know what Ellen was willing to do to Liberia? You ever saw the contract that Ellen was willing to sign to? Liberia was going to get, I think, less than 1% of oil revenues, less than 1%. And the oil company only promised to fix the university. Go and look at that with all her credential. Mind you, there's somebody who got some benefit or some minor Harvard training and the rest of it. Go and look at that oil contract. Okay. And lastly, I will say this. The reason why WEA was voted into power is the same reason why people are trying to vote WEA out of power, because Ellen did not deliver the jobs.
Thank you.
You go and liquidate debt. What country doesn't have a debt? Every country has a debt. But the difference between other countries and Liberia is that Liberian presidents don't seem to get it, that Liberian people need jobs to live a life of dignity. So that is another thing that was absent under Ellen. And unfortunately for George Weah, he came, saw the problem, and decided that he did not need to fix it. He thought that his charisma was going to carry him to a second term. No, it's not. Because why? Like I said in the editorial, charisma is episodic. It was an honor being on this platform and being with other panelists. We look forward to another discussion tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Garley, you have 1 minute to give us your closing statement. Go ahead, please.
Can I use my sister first?
She's the co-host.
Oh, she's a co-host. Okay.
Yeah.
This is one thing. I want to see the best for Liberia. And I can tell anybody, for Liberia to be where Liberia needs to be, we need three, no less than three, good leadership in the role, whether they're serving 2 terms each. That's what Liberia needs for Liberia to be where Liberia needs to be. If until we can have that, I live in Liberia, we're not going to have the Liberia that we need to see. You can look at the candidates in the race today. We can talk about the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. We can glorify Ellen. We can glorify Boyka. We can glorify Weah, the Alexander Cummings. We are still where we are today. No roads, no lights, no water. Nothing has been done. Nothing much has been done. So we can talk politics all we want until we find the 3 rightful leaders in the role. Liberia will never be where we want Liberia to be. And thank you for having me on your show. And it was nice talking to everybody else. And I would like to really sit and have these 2 guys. Maybe the pastor, he could probably drink beer for us to sit and really have the discussion. I really enjoyable for y'all too. Yeah.
And you are welcome tomorrow if you have the time as well. 8 p.m. As this is 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Mr. Garley. Okay, Idatus, closing statement. 1 minute, please.
Yes, my fellow Liberians, we are poised at a very crucial juncture in our country. Here we are today, we're faced with a youthful president who we thought embodied the vision of this generation, but certainly failed us. You have a clear choice of a visionary in the name of Joseph Boyka, whose experience, competence, and vision will make a difference for Liberia. He's been tried. He's been tested. He understands what public service is. He knows what it means for a child, that mother, to go to bed hungry. To my brothers and sisters in the civil servants, I know some of you had to join the rally that was last held because you were threatened potentially by this government. You have an opportunity to make a choice where you can earn better salary, where mothers can go to school, where mothers can earn and be proud of their earning, where children can go to school and be proud of their education. This can be only be a reality in someone who's the elder statesman of Liberia today, who just want to do nothing but lay a foundation of decent leadership. Don't be carried away by youthfulness and who talks the loudest and who can move around the country the most. Vision builds a nation. We're not playing football. We're not playing basketball. Muya Muya, my brothers and sisters of CDC, you did that for over 5.5 years at the headquarters throughout the street. Has your lives changed? The truth is, it hasn't. You're still doing the same thing. It's an opportunity to change. Kush is not your education. Drugs is not your education. Playing games through football, to proliferating of ghettos throughout the country, is not your destiny. You can be better. You can live better. You may have been born during the war or a little after the war. You have a choice. And that choice is in none other but Joseph Yuman Poik. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Roberts, please unmute your device.
Yes, thank you so much, my fellow panelists, and of course to our viewing audience. Thank you for coming back to join us. We ask that you come weekly as we'll bring you the topics of importance or issues that matter. But in my closing, I just want to say, I heard all of you talk about the three most populated candidates or popular candidates, and I would want our people to say, to hear this, you had the past, which was the Ellen Boakai government. You have the present, which is the CDC government. I listened to Dr. Patrick Lumumba, who said when he went to Uganda, they said looting was the government was looting. Then he went to Liberia and he heard that they were not just looting, they were looting on the industrial scale. They have looted your resources and they're dressed in your resources and they want to give them to you at the 11th hour. They were there for 6 years. They didn't give you, they didn't speak to you, they didn't come to your counties to encourage you, to see how you're doing. And now, today, 1 month before election, everybody's all in your face. You think about it. If you don't vote for anybody, not yourself, because maybe you're older, but you, the youth, your future is at hand. Your children's future is at hand. Our whole diaspora is at hand. You hear the people, they're tired, they want to retire. America and all the West is great, but there's no place like home. You call us every time. Right now, it's opening school time. You're calling. If your government is so great and they're giving you free education, why are you calling the diaspora for money? Why are you calling for school fees? Why are you calling for food? Come on, Liberians. Let's not continue to do this. You kill my mom, you kill my pa. You do this, you know book, you don't know book. Those are stupid slogans, and I will use the word stupid. What can you do for me? What have you done for me lately? Those should be your questions. I thank you.
Well, folks, as we close tonight, 33 years ago on this day, my uncle, Thomas Koyian, my uncles, Peter Thomas, my uncle, Samuel Tode, my uncle, David Double, my uncle, Samin Fale, my uncle, Amos Yonin, my uncle, Thomas Yonin, my uncle, Afri Yonin. The grandmother of my children was shot 9 times and killed by Prince Johnson. All of my uncles I just listed were murdered and thrown in the St. Paul River by Prince Johnson. My father was killed and thrown in the water by Prince Johnson. My children today don't have the luxury of grandparents. Today, Joseph Yuma Boyka has as his military advisor in the Prince Johnson. You listen to Prince Johnson when he said 5 months he spent time campaigning for Joseph Yuma Boyka to select Jeremiah Cone to be his running mate. Prince Johnson himself said he succeeded. Boyka pushed Yombly aside. Costa and the rest were pushed aside. Don't allow the ball to disgrace us. Those are the words of Prince Johnson. Reached out to me to support Boyka. But I have this in me. What happened to my kids who don't have the luxury grandparents? What happened to you people that go to see every decoration day and go to your parents' grave? I don't have a grave for my father because Prince Johnson chose to do that. And you want me to support Boyka for president? I'm sorry. That's all the time we'll have to be with you. I'm Ashford Garley. Have a good night.
Good night.
Well said.